Soulful Sauna, Stories of Self-Mastery. Thank you for joining us. It is you, the viewer, that makes this podcast. Your host, Juliette Noske, and her guests are here to share stories of self-mastery, to inspire you and ignite the power of positive change on your own journey. Thank you for being with us. Hello, and welcome everyone to the Soulful Sauna podcast. And today we have the wonderful Anthony Hutton with us. So Anthony Hutton is the Big Brother winner of 2005, and he's also a barber and a barber educator, which we'll hear more about in a moment. And he's a mental health guest speaker. And we actually met and came across each other at a festival, a one-day festival, the Festival of Love. Or is it all about love? It was all about love, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so we got to meet there with my mum as well. And it was a pleasure to meet you and also to hear a bit more about your story while you were there speaking on stage. So hello, Anthony. How are you today?
Hello. Thank you for having me on here. And yeah, it was nice meeting you. We had a nice chat. And obviously you mentioned about doing the podcast. And I think we obviously touched on we have something very similar in terms of the chats that you have in the sauna. And I said, well, actually, it's quite similar to my thing in terms of what I do for a living. With me being a barber, and being a barber, I managed to have like a real unique relationship and conversations with my clients, and the clients become friends, and then next thing you know, you're almost like a psychologist. It's yeah, being a barber is a fascinating job. So yeah, it's good to be here and have a chat.
Yeah, and I'd like to take you back to when you won the Big Brother, and obviously, you know, you went in as Anthony Hutton, and you came out as Anthony Hutton, but from a different perspective. And as you said, everyone, all of a sudden, you know, there were fireworks, everyone knew your name, and life was completely different. Can you tell us a little bit more about that whole experience?
Yeah, so like you said, it was, in reflection, it was a very extreme taste of fame. And also, like you said, I just seen myself as the same guy, but other people didn't. I was Anthony from Big Brother, and yeah, it was a real it was an unbelievable experience. It's something that I, you know, look back on with amazing memories, and I look back at and think, wow, that was like such an unbelievable experience. For the highs and also for the lows, there was some real extreme highs from that experience, but there was also some huge lows as well. But all in all, I kind of feel like that was the journey. And although there was some real lows, them actual lows, they actually formed me into the person that I am now. So like I said, even though there was some highs and some lows, I still look back on it with a very positive and fond memories of it. And the lows actually kind of made me stronger, and the lows are something that I touch on now with talking about men's mental health. And it's also like the being a barber as well. it just, from my experience of the laws and being a barber, it just kind of like pushed me in the direction of talking about men's mental health, a huge problem that needs tackled.
Yeah. And you said that basically each year as people came out of Big Brother, there was a new Big Brother winner. So in the beginning you said agents wanted you had big photo shoots, being paid crazy amounts of money, and then year after year as new Big Brother winners came out, you kind of lost that fame. And was that when you started experiencing the lows, would you say?
Yeah, pretty much. It was back then, it was like, when you're in it, you kind of don't realize, like, when I was starting to feel low, and down, and then started going, and then I kind of, where I turned to alcohol, drugs. I didn't really I was just in it. I didn't really kind of like realize until I'd kind of come out of it, and basically with age, experience, and just looking back on it. But yeah, it was such an extreme taste of fame, real huge high, fame, money, you know, put on a pedestal, ego massaged. And again, I was only 23 at the time, quite a young, naive 23-year-old. And then it basically kind of like dwindling, and got to the point where it was like, oh no, like, what do I do next? I've been I've been used to this fame, I've been used to this money, like paranoia, really bothered it, like paranoia about what people thought if I had to get a job, a real job. I thought, people would literally point and laugh at me. My own ego was probably in the way as well. I was like, well, I can't get a job because I'm Anthony from Big Brother. So there was lots of stuff that basically made me go into a dark place. Like I said, I got to the point where I really on a daily basis was just so down, and I felt like an utter loser, because I thought, how on earth have I managed to get on a TV show and win it and make a load of money and be successful, and how the hell has it managed to get to the point where I'm actually really struggling financially? I don't know what to do. I feel like a loser, and yeah, I got into a really, really dark place.
And what would you say was the point of kind of realization of where exactly you were at? Was there a particular moment that happened, or was it someone that kind of instigated that change?
It was it got to a really bad point where I was, my parents, my parents could kind of see how bad I was feeling, because normally I've always been a really happy-go-lucky, fun guy, and always been positive and enthusiastic, and I was just literally like hating the world. I was putting a lot. I was just. I was so negative. I was thinking, how's it been like this? I was putting blame on other people. So it was kind of like a slowed downward path. And when I basically started drinking excessive amount of alcohol and I turned to drugs, and it was something that I'd never really kind of, that wasn't me. I'd never really done that. And there was basically I was thinking I was in such a dark place. I was basically having suicidal thoughts. I wasn't planning on anything in particular, but if I was at the stage where if someone said there's a button here, you can press it and you don't have to be here, I would have said press the button. I absolutely don't want to be here. And there was one night when I'd basically been out for 3 days without any sleep, just completely intoxicated. And I remember coming in from a 3-day bender, and it sounds kind of cliche, but I was literally looking in the mirror, and I was just like, it didn't even look like me. It was looking back at me, and it was like, oh, so I have to change. Something has to change here, because if this continues, this is not going to end well. And I would say, yeah, that was pretty much at the top of my head. That was kind of the moment where I was like, something needs to change. And I don't, depending on how you look at it, whether it was a stroke of luck, fate, or whatever, I got an opportunity. Someone reached out to me, and they basically wanted me to take over. They wanted me to be the face of this new Barber brand, and it was just like, I was a hairdresser. I was a hairdresser by trade.
Mm.
I remember thinking, because the opportunity it made it, I had to kind of move to another. I had to move out of town, and luckily enough, I had the self-awareness where I thought, I need to change up. Like, I need to get out, because I was hanging around with a real bad circle. I was hanging around with people who weren't my friend; they were just basically acquaintances. People who, they thought I still had an element of fame. So I think a lot of them like to hang around with me. A lot that that this was kind of like an alcohol, drug fueled kind of like friendship group.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, I actually need to get away from these people, and I need to change up. And that opportunity presented itself. And I remember ringing my best friend, Chris. Me and my best mate, Chris. We've literally been best mates since we were 5. I was his best man. He's my best man. We're like brothers. And he was someone who was like, who kind of had seen the path I was going down, and he was like, you need to change here. And I remember ringing him up saying, I've got this opportunity to come out of Newcastle, and he said, I think that's a great move, absolutely. And anyway, I moved out of the town, changed location, and that was one of the biggest factors. In reflection, it turned out to be literally one of the best moves that I made to get myself out of there. And when I do my talks, I always highlight this as a thing to do: is you need to take action. You need to change things up, because if you're in a bad place and you're in a dark place, suicidal, depression, it's often because of some specific things,
Mm.
whether that's in a toxic relationship, whether that's in a job that you hate, whether that's in a location where it's a bad crowd. You need to change things up. One of the first things you need to talk. Talking always helps, and that was something that I also done. I remember questioning myself, do I need to go and see someone? And then I thought, the fact that I'm asking myself, do I need to go and see someone, that probably tells me that I need to go and see someone. So
Yeah.
talking and taking action, changing things up, is such a good thing. And like I said, once I moved away, I actually worked in this hair salon, and I met my now wife, who I've got a beautiful son too. We're happily married in a nice home. And when I made that step, I just started making baby steps into making the right moves. And then suddenly I felt my life starting to take momentum, and I kind of started feeling like me again. And it was kind of like, it's one of the things I'm most proud of, that I actually managed to kind of get myself out of that place and come out of it. And having that experience, having that experience now, where I'm actually able to talk about it, where I'm actually able to kind of help people. And being a barber, it's the perfect job to help people in terms of, because you're having conversations. I speak to men on a daily basis, which
Yeah.
which is amazing.
You mentioned as well that when you were talking about this before we had our conversation, you said that initially you felt very embarrassed to talk about, what had gone on for you regarding your mental health and well-being. And
Yeah.
I think that's a huge challenge for a lot of people, especially maybe men. A lot of men that I speak to say that the kind of the opening and the space for them to speak what they're feeling and their emotions hasn't necessarily been there. So how were you able to overcome that kind of fear of embarrassment of sharing what had gone on for you in your story?
Yeah. So that was like you touched on there. It was something that I was extremely embarrassed about, and it was something that I was shameful of. I would consider myself as a very proud man, and I always kind of like, I've always kind of, liked. I'm someone who's always wanted to do well. I've always kind of, I don't know what it is, whether it's a trait, whether it's, I've never actually I've never spoke one word to my dad ever in my life, and I would never say that I wouldn't say it's ever affected me in a bad way. I think it's affected me in a positive way, because I've always maybe had a slight chip on my shoulder, but a good chip on my shoulder, where I've always kind of thought, I want to do well. And yeah, I've always been I think I've always been proud. And I think I come from I've always been a very sporting lad. I've come from a very much a sporting background. And when you're in, I've played football all my life, and I've done boxing. I've had boxing fights. I've done athletics. I like the gym. So when you're especially when you're that type of guy, it's, in sporting kind of environments, if you've got a weakness, you don't show it, because you'll get the mickey taken out of you, and you don't show weakness. And I think someone like me going through like mental health and showing a weakness, that's why I was very much like, you know don't let anyone know this, like keep this to yourself, like, you're an alpha male, and all these type of stuff that blokes think about. But it was basically but for me starting to share it just happened organically, because it was just purely from me being a barber, and it was off the back of men started to open up to me about being in a bad place. And then I basically started like actually sharing with them my experience, that I can help you, mate, because I've actually been there myself. And I think it's, especially with mental health and being in a dark place, it's very comforting when you hear someone else's that's been through or going through the same thing. Because I remember when I was feeling the things that I felt, when I went and seen professional help, one of the best things that the guy told me is when he started sharing the stuff, he'd actually been in a similar place. So when I'd heard those words, it made me feel less weird. I felt, because there was a lot of, for a long time I felt weird. I didn't realize, like, I thought I was actually deludedly, I thought I was the only one who was kind of like feeling them things. So I felt so weird. So that's why I basically started sharing it, because it's, you know, what when you hear someone who's been in those places, and you touch on similar things that they've been through, and then you let them know, like, look, I've actually been there, but, like, honestly, I got through it. And I think those words are golden to someone who is in a bad place. So it just where I basically just I just started sharing it in the barbershop, initially, and then I just started realizing, like, um this is actually like a I've got a voice on this. Yeah, it's definitely a problem that needs addressed. And then I'll never, when I do my talks, my talk is called, and actually writing I'm trying to pitch to write a book, and the book in my talks are called Never Throw in the Towel. And that comes from such a special place in my heart, because I used those words in my grandma's eulogy, and I had such a special, amazing relationship with my grandma. And my grandma, basically, she got cancer in 2014, and she passed away in 2022. It was our anniversary recently, actually. She passed away on 9/11, coincidentally. So you never forget that, do you? But but I use at the end of I wanted the eulogy to be, I wanted it to be of a celebration, and to tell a story amazingly well, and I wanted it to be positive. And at the end of the eulogy, I touched on my grandma's mentality and attitude towards cancer, and she literally done everything she possibly could to continue living, and she never ever once flinched or complained, and she was always so positive. And I used the word, she never threw in the towel. And never throw in the towel is a term that's used in boxing. And yeah, I spoke about everyone should really try and everyone can learn from my grandma's attitude to never give in, to never give up, to keep on living. And at the end of the eulogy, there was a gentleman who came up to me who I'd never met before, and he came in. He was like, tears were trickling down his face, and he thanked me for my words in my eulogy, and he told me how he knew me gran from many years back, and shook me hand, and we had I'd never met him, but I really felt a connection there. And later that night, he sent me a message again, big long message, basically telling me that he'd been suffering badly from suicidal thoughts, and how the words "never throw in the towel" really touched him, and that he's going to continue to keep on living and have my grandma's attitude. And I was just like, whoa, man. I was like, it just shows you to, you never know who's listening.
Mm.
Always be kind. And yeah, it random when I got the opportunity to be a guest speaker on men's mental health, I got asked what do I want to call the talk, and I was like, yeah, never throw in the towel. Them words mean so much to me. So anytime I go and do that talk now, it's like it's quite hard doing. It's not easy being a guest speaker. Like speaking, public speaking in general is quite hard. Even more so when it's like something as vulnerable as men's mental health. But when I do it, I kind of always just feel like my grandma's kind of like looming in the background, and it's just it kind of it's like it gives me good feelings that, like, you know what, I've went down this great path of trying to help on men's mental health, and it's kind of like my grandma's there by my side.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing public speaking and I asked the advice of a public speaker, and he said, you just got to remember it's not about you. And that's just what
Yeah.
you've said, it's not about you. It's about all those people out there that you're going to be serving and helping, and kind of get out your own way. And I think that really helps you get over the fear. And I had shivers as well when you were talking about your grandma and the guy that spoke to you at the funeral. And it just shows, even if you help that one person from your talk, that's huge.
Yeah.
They then impact, however many people in their life, and that ripple effect spreads out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
what would you say to kind of, what would you give as advice to your previous self, your younger self, when you were in the Big Brother? Do you think, I know it is part of our journey, and so the highs and the lows, and that's part of our journey, and without that we wouldn't have grown. But is there advice that you would have given to your younger self when you just won Big Brother?
Well, when I just won it.
Yeah, is there any advice you would have given yourself?
Oh, oh wow! I wish I had me. I wish I had me waiting for me outside the Big Brother house. Um, yeah, I would have just basically. It was yeah. I probably wouldn't change anything, because, like I said, it's like that. It's all about the life journey. If it was I'm a dad now. If it was my son and those kind of things, I'd just basically say, look, I'd just be saying keep a level head. I would definitely been given instructions on where to put money. I would have definitely said, do not buy an extravagant car outright. Something that an idiotic move that I'd done. Um, yeah,
I think
maybe you're going to Las Vegas too many times. Uh, but then on the flip side, I still think, well, flipping hell, man, I had such a good time.
yeah.
So I would have just basically said, look, I would I would have just been a bit more business-like about kind of what you spend your money on, really, to be honest. But it was quite hard to be honest. It was quite hard to tell me anything back then, because I was just a you know, raging animal really back then. But I think that's what comes with kind of youth, though. There's very much a carefree attitude when you're younger. You look at things and you analyze things a lot more when you're older, don't you?
Mm.
Um, the you know the There's a magic about experience, but there's also a magic about no experience as well. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean? And I do really think, I know I keep on mentioning the journey, but it really is really is a journey. You're a different, you're a different animal as opposed to when you're younger and when you're older. You're the same person. You've got, there's a lot of things that are the same, the character and stuff, but there's also a lot of stuff that's very different as well.
Yeah, I think you've highlighted something there that's really important as well, because as parents, us human beings almost try and save our children from experiencing the same things that we experienced. We want them to have the best, and we want to prevent them from, making the mistakes that we made. But actually, if we look back like you just did on your on your history and what's happened, there in some ways there's a lot that you wouldn't change, because it's that experience that grew you into the man that you are today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing for us to remember, that sometimes when we're in the experience we can't really see that. However, when we look back, I remember hearing a talk from Steve Jobs, and he says when you look back you can join the dots. When he dropped out of college, he didn't realize he'd be doing a calligraphy course whilst he was sleeping on the floor of his friends' houses, and the calligraphy course actually had a huge impact on the design of Apple as it is today. And so these things kind of make us who we are today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously you've talked about some quite intense and in-depth mental health issues, literally coming to the edge of suicide. And I'm sure that there are people out there who are possibly listening today who might actually be on that edge as well. And I myself, when I was 16, I actually had an attempted suicide as well. Thankfully I wasn't successful. It was more, I didn't want to be alive. It was more a cry for help than not necessarily, I didn't necessarily want to be dead, but I didn't want to be alive. And I was literally taken to that edge. So I know, how it can be. And I'm sure there are people out there who are kind of in the lows. And you mentioned a couple of things that would be good, sharing, talking to people. Are there any other bits of advice that you would give to those people out there?
Yeah, so the thing about suicide is you're looking to do a permanent solution on a temporary feeling. Do you get what I mean? Because if nothing lasts forever, and the bad times certainly don't last. It's just understanding that process. Like, so like now, with my experience of getting through it, and with age and knowledge, and experience, some we all can still have down moments. I remember when when my grandma passed away, it was like, I found it so hard, but I always just kind of resorted to my knowledge of, like, look at the, just go with it, and with time it's not gonna hurt as much. So it's just understanding that if you're in this horrific place, it will not last. But you've got to take action, and there's things that we have to, in my opinion, there's things that we have to implement in our life, especially with where suicide is, and especially in this modern social media internet world. I really don't think, I don't know whether we were kind of designed to have what we have in the world now, with with social media. With social media, you've instantly got like a front row seat at comparison of someone's of someone's with social media. You literally you can watch other people's lives and of a highlight reel. So if you're on flicking through social media, I don't know, and you're seeing, I don't know, some guys just bought an Audi and they're married with kids and they look like they're living the dream, and I don't know, you're 33, you're single, you've maybe been divorced, and you work in a job that you hate. That can really go down the pan, and I definitely think that's one of the big reasons why we have kind of suicide, because we've got this massive, huge shop front of comparison. So in terms of, and there's lots of other factors, but in this modern world, I think there's really stuff that we have to implement. So exercise, regardless whether you're a fitness person or you like exercise or the gym, that shouldn't even come into it, in my opinion. You should you should literally be doing some form of exercise,
Mm.
on a that should literally be incorporated in your lifestyle. Whatever exercise it is, whether it's just going on long walks, being out in nature, whether it's swimming, running. If we move, if we move, we get endorphins, and that them chemicals, them chemicals that we get from endorphins immediately put ourselves in a headspace, in a good headspace. So exercise is massively important in
Mm.
incorporate in our lifestyle, and just being yeah, just I mean, I love cold water therapy. Immersion in cold water is just absolutely fantastic. You build up massive resilience being able to do that, and there's so many. If you look into the if you look into um positive the positives from cold water is unbelievable. Saunas, what you've mentioned, um yeah, all of these things really. um and also just I'm a big believer in enjoying your job. um the we if you look at your day, if you broke your day into a pie chart, your biggest the biggest slice of the pie chart will be your job.
Yeah.
um so just identifying stuff that, if you are in a bad place, it's just kind of like trying to like step out of step out and have a look in, and being self-aware. um yeah, I'm trying to think if what else. Just yeah, mainly the I think, if you look at anything in terms of, if you look at any manuals, any books on self-well-being, exercise is right up there in terms of how to how to get better in a good headspace.
Yeah. I was going to ask you actually, are there any books that you've read over the years? It could be recently or it could be years ago. Any books that kind of stand out to you that really had a huge impact on your self-mastery journey?
Um, it's probably I actually I actually like really I really don't like reading. I've never been. I'm a terror. I think I must have dyslexia, because I'm like I can't read. I'm a terrible reader, terrible speller. Um, I'm more kind of like watching things on YouTube. Really. I'm a I'm a big fan of David Goggins. I don't know. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah. Yeah.
David Goggins. Yeah, I like he's very direct with his opinions, but I do think we really, in this modern day world that we live in, I do think there has to be
a lot of resilience, and just I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, to be honest. Yeah, a lot of the stuff's just from just my experience, really. Just me kind of like grown, grown as a person, and being just conscious of having a good mind and a good headspace. I've just somehow stumbled across cold water stuff. I'm big into me exercise and big into me training. Yeah, I can't think of nothing nothing that jumps out book wise.
I think what you said as well, that when you said that the feeling is impermanent, it's something that my mum always used to say, which is this too shall pass. And when you look to nature, that I think that really can help us in many ways, because if it's winter, for example, it's like, well, this too shall pass, and then then spring will come, and the weather is constantly changing, sometimes in England during one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be summer, winter, and autumn in a whole day. But yeah, if you look to nature as well, and do you get out much into nature?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I absolutely like, yeah, anything to do with, outdoorsy stuff. I absolutely just love. I love being in the water. I love going on walks. I love I love walking my dog. Yeah, if I'm around any form of cold water, honestly, I'm just like, I'm almost like, I'm obsessed with it. I love it. I'm just like, I just love, yeah, I'll just love being out in the water, me. Yeah. That's what it's about though, isn't it? The that's what life's about, really, isn't it? Like all the best things. It's very, very cliche, and it's probably one of the best, truest sayings going. But all the best things in life are free, aren't they? Everything. Yeah, I'm big on that. You've got to be. I think you've got to be present, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. For me as well, it's the woods. I love the woods and the trees, and yeah, I love being in the magical woods.
Yeah, yeah. I love dancing as well. I absolutely like. There's a. I really find magic on the dance floor as well. I love yeah, I love kind of losing myself on the dance floor as well. So yeah.
Yeah, dancing and singing for me too.
Yeah, I can't sing. I love singing, but I'm terrible at it. I am a good dancer though. I am a
Yeah.
good dancer.
What kind of dance do you do?
Well, it's kind of like I love. Well, I used to be a dancer. I used to
Yeah.
be. I was for
You
many
used to be in a
years. I
group,
was.
didn't you?
Yeah, I was in. It was like 70s. It was a 70s disco dance troupe. So yeah, it was basically kind of like all music back in the 70s the disco era. And that's kind of like, I still love that type of music. Anything funky, anything disco, I absolutely I absolutely love.
Yeah.
What
Fantastic.
about you? What type of music do you like?
Oh, I'm very eclectic. I love all kinds of music. I do sometimes go to salsa dancing with friends.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I remember learning for the first time to do salsa, and it was a real surrender because I was so used to dancing on my own on the disco floor, just my own kind of way and style. And then all of a sudden, being like needing to kind of let someone else lead, and not having a father, I was a very kind of independent, more kind of in my masculine energy, maybe a bit more kind of, yeah,
Right.
strong in that way, and very able to do anything myself, which so learning to surrender and let other people do things for me, or someone else to lead me on the dance floor, it was
Right, okay.
yeah, it was a big step.
Interesting. It's quite it's quite, it is like doing something like that though, it is quite intimate though, isn't it? It's very like there's no getting away from it's you know, holding someone and being kind of like that close to their face.
Yeah.
That I've never kind of really dabbled, I've never really kind of done that. I mean, I did. We done that a little bit when we were when I'd done the 70s dance troupe. But yeah, it is quite a. I would say it is something quite. I can imagine it being kind of hard to surrender, you know, based on the kind of intimacy and what you've just mentioned.
Yeah, but yeah, very beautiful, very
Yeah,
very
yeah,
interesting experience.
yeah.
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 So tell me, where do you see yourself now on your personal development journey, on your self-mastery journey? And is there anything that you're learning about yourself now? Because we're constantly kind of learning and growing, aren't we? Is there anything that you're learning about yourself now, in where you're at in your life?
That is a good question. I think it's just where I'm at. It's basically I'm just in a place where I'm just just trying to be the best version of myself, really. Whether that's like in my family life, as a husband, as a dad, or as a in my work life, really. Just just generally just trying to um be good in all of them aspects, really. Yeah, and then it's just kind of quite simple, just quite simple for me, really. Just all the just try and be nice, be kind, try I always like try my best, whatever that is, really. um yeah, so just nothing in too depth, really. Just um yeah, just basically trying to attack life, really. I always kind of just look at life of just if there's it's just all about life experiences, isn't it? It's just all about kind of looking back on your life, and you just think, I give it a great shot there. And that's how I look at life, really. If there's something that scares me or I've never done before, and I think it's kind of fun, or I'm going to grow from it, I'm always in. I'm always like, yeah, let's do it. And that's just how I approach life, really.
Yeah. And when you said before, you said you reached out, did you reach out and see a counselor or a psychologist or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
How do you think, like, if you look back on that time and reflect that, what bits are you still using? How does that help you now, for example, in your personal intimate relationship with your wife or with your business?
What, right? I took a lot from that, right? And I took a lot from that conversation, and it was definitely needed, and it was definitely it was definitely a good move on my end, right? But I only went there once, and what I realized is, like, if I am going to get out of this place, it's actually going to come from me. It's got to come from me. And that's something that I realized that it's got, someone can tell you, they can tell you everything, but if it's not burning inside you to get better or to move forward, then it won't happen. That's what, like, I like going to the gym, and I kind of like, I'll never get a personal trainer me now, because I've kind of like got the attitude where I'm like, well, what is he going to tell me? Like there's, and I really don't mean that in a cocky or arrogant way at all, because personal trainers are excellent and they do a good job, and some people just need to they need that accountability. But for just my attitude, my mentality, as I'm like, well, no, I don't need to tell, I don't need to be motivated. I'll do this myself. Like, I will. There's no one going to, like, kind of, ultimately, I'm the one who's got to get up. I'm the one who's got to, I don't know, have banana and porridge. I've got all that, and that's kind of like something that I actually like learned, was like, you know what, like, if you want to get better, it's got to come from you. Yeah, so it was very, very, like, it was such a good move on my end to go and speak to someone, and it really did, just that release of actually just airing it to someone felt really good. But I did also learn, like, coming away from it, I thought, right, okay, I've heard some good stuff, and I don't feel weird, but, like, this is actually going to come from me, because most of the things that the guy was telling me were already in the back of my head. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I hope that's answered your question.
Yes, and it reminds me of, there's a guy called Dr. Zach Bush, and he is a doctor, but he actually doesn't call himself a doctor anymore. And he said that the reason he doesn't call himself a doctor anymore is because people come to him thinking that he is going to make them better.
Yeah.
And he said what it is he actually created retreats now. And in these retreats, he holds space so that people can witness each other's healing. And, it's exactly what you said, which is, a key part of my belief, is that we can heal ourselves, and we're not going to do it until we're ready. And when we're ready, we will implement those changes that need to be, made. Doesn't mean we can't have help. Doesn't mean that we won't have people around us to witness it, to support us in whatever way.
Yeah.
And, a personal trainer, for example, they can be there to motivate you, or they can be there to make sure you're getting your technique right, or whatever.
Absolutely.
So there's their place for them. But
absolutely.
but the key is that, we are the instigators of our own healing. And that is one of my fundamental core beliefs as well. And so it's really interesting hearing you say that as well. You obviously made those changes, and I would say that you possibly have a strong foundation from the family and the people around you, because from those people you've obviously gained a lot of the beliefs that you have around, believing in yourself and your own strength. I know you spoke a lot about your grandma.
Yeah. Oh no, I've had the most loving supportive family you could ever wish to ask for, really. I kind of, like, I had two mums. I had my mother, who's an absolute amazing mum, and I also like had grandma as well. So yeah, they were just, I couldn't have asked for a more supportive family, really.
Yeah.
Which I feel very lucky and fortunate of, because like I said, I think if I, as much as I talk about, strength, I did have I had some real close friends, and I had a very supportive family. I really feel for people who are in the dark place and that they actually don't have that support network. I really for them. That's why one of the people I came across who I really who there was someone who there was a client of mine who I really went, I really dug in deep in terms of trying to help this person, because I was the only person who, like, me as their barber, I was actually one of the people who they feel like they could go to, and the one thing that was, the one thing that they didn't have was a family support. So I really, really kind of was, I just wanted to help so much, because I thought, well, I've been in that place, but I had a real supportive family, and you actually haven't got you haven't got a supportive family. So yeah, I really feel for people like that.
Yeah. I do a lot of work with young people, and one of the things that we look at is kind of the critic in your head and the kind of the cheerleader in your head that kind of looks out for you. And obviously, if you can learn to be your own cheerleader and cheer yourself on, this is fantastic. But sometimes at some points we need, even if it's just one person on the outside who believes in us when we're in that darkest moment, and like you say, you are the light at the end of their tunnel, showing them that it is possible to come out the other end of this darkness. And if it was possible for you, then it is possible for them.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anyone out there, if they are in a dark place, to reach out, because there will be someone who will be there in it. If it's not a family member, if it's not a friend, then it might be someone else that like your friendly barber. And encourage also people out there to reach out to someone who they think might be going through a challenging time. I know that one of my mum's friends, because my mum couldn't get near me when I was having my challenging time as a teenager, in my late teens, but one of her friends was able, because she maybe didn't have that same closeness, she was able to reach out to me and get to me when other people couldn't in that time. So if you do notice someone out there who's having challenges, I invite anyone listening to reach out to them, and then it's their opportunity to see that there's someone there for them.
Absolutely. And it's, the thing is, it's from a from a man's point of view, you do feel you do feel weakness, or that's definitely kind of like, them feelings are in there, but it's actually one of the most bravest things you can do, is actually kind of like reach out and like acknowledge and own how you're feeling. So it's actually something extremely brave to do. So feeling feeling weak, it's actually not weak, it's actually extremely strong. You're actually like, you're identifying something, and you're owning it, and you being vulnerable is an extremely brave thing to do.
Yes, there's a wonderful woman, I don't know if you've heard of her, called Brené Brown, and she shares a lot about vulnerability, and how by being vulnerable, by opening ourselves up, it is the greatest strength, just like you've just said.
Yeah.
And then it gives other people permission, just like in your Barber, when you share, it gives other people permission then to own where they're at. And it just helps us in general. It helps us all learn and grow. You know, one of the reasons that I've created this podcast is because of people I used to meet in the sauna, everyday ordinary people. And I believe we're all, you know, everyday ordinary people. We all sit on our own throne in the smallest room in our house every day. Our crowns fall out like my crown fell out.
No, but you're no, you are right though. For whatever reason, I don't know. It's just we naturally put people on pedestals, whether that's for you know, for whatever reason. But everyone's just the same. Everyone, you know, everyone has hard times. Everyone has good times, bad times. We're all the same on that front, really.
And if I was wearing a t-shirt, the t-shirt would say "work in progress." Oh, well, I think that's a lovely place to end it. I could talk to you for ages. And I think the work that you're doing out there in the world is amazing. It's much needed. And I invite the men listening to reach out to you as well. We'll have your details somewhere around here, wherever you're listening in. And thank you so much, Anthony.
Yeah, my pleasure. Just a quick one, actually. So,
yeah,
no, just I don't know whether a plug's the right word to use, but so Movember's approaching, and you know, Movember's to do with men's mental health, and I'm actually going to put on my first Never Throw in the Towel retreat. So I'm about to kind of like release that on my socials. So I'm basically, it's going to be a day of basically a bunch of men, all men are in, like men. It's specifically for men, and we're going to go on a nice walk. We're going to do boxing. Then we are going to do cold water, and then we're going to have some food. So it's going to be like a full day of activities. So yeah, if anyone's interested, then drop me a message on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, fantastic. I'd love to come, but I'm not a man. I have to do a mixed women and men's one.
Yeah, no, I think I will. Yeah, it's just the first one. I thought it's a great time to do it just for Movember.
Yeah, no, I'm only joking. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and yeah, likewise, you just carry on doing the amazing work and just being kind and just spreading a good message. I think it you know, if everyone's like that, the world will be a much nicer place.
Thank you to Matt and Ken at Thermalux UK for offering their saunas as a space for me to record my podcast in. Soulful Saunas, stories of self-mastery.